Good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to Live Talk. We are coming to you from Studio 7 at the Voice of America in Washington. It's a Friday, May the 14th, 2021. I am Tungamili Nkomo.
And I'm Marvelous Mhlanga Nyahuye, broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C. because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is currently ravaging the whole world. But here in America, we've seen that some of the restrictions are being lifted. So as more people go to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
Tonight, we will give you an update on the COVID-19, but the main issue we are dealing with is the controversial extension of Chief Justice Luke Malaba's term by President Emerson Mnangagwa by 5 years. And we have breaking news on that. The Judicial Service Commission filed an application yesterday seeking the recusal of Justice Zhou from hearing this case, which was brought by the young lawyers of Zimbabwe. And today, a panel of High Court judges who will hear this matter, that's Justice Zhou, Justice Charewa, and Justice Mushore, have just ruled that Justice Zhou is not going to recuse himself. It's not going to happen. So the Judicial Service Commission has lost this matter, and that means that the case will now be heard with Justice Zhou sitting on the bench. That is breaking news, and we will give you more with our political panel from the MDC, both the MDC-T, MDC Alliance, and ZANU-PF. But Mav, what are the coronavirus figures today?
From that breaking news, we're going straight into the COVID-19 pandemic and looking at the figures coming out of Zimbabwe. The Ministry of Health says that as of yesterday, May the 13th, 2021, Zimbabwe has 38,491 COVID positive cases since March last year, including 36,286 recoveries. And unfortunately, 1,582 people have actually died from the COVID-19 pandemic to date since March last year. We also look at Zimbabwe being in its second phase of the COVID-19 vaccination program, where it is actually giving out various doses of different COVID-19 vaccines. But to date, they say that they have all vaccinated over 559 people, 875, which is over 500,000 people have been vaccinated against COVID-19 to date in Tunda.
Indeed, Mava. And from yesterday's cases, there's two returnees from India who also tested positive, and that's kind of scary there, because we know India has a more transmissible variant, which is killing just too many people as we speak. And two people from Midlands who returned recently from India just tested positive for COVID-19. And there are also 7 people who came into contact with them who also tested positive. But we don't know yet whether these people carry the Indian variant or any other variant. That's not clear yet. And looking at the global picture, we now have 161 million coronavirus cases and 3.3 million deaths. 3.3 million people have died from COVID-19. That's a big number there, Mav.
Yes, and you also realize that here in the United States, we have over 500,000 cases of COVID-19, looking at the number of people that have been vaccinated in Zimbabwe, that's exactly the, kind of in the ballpark of the number of people that actually contracted COVID-19 here in the United States. But the United States reports that they are on course with their vaccination program, trying to make sure that everybody has had, that the country has had immunity. And Zimbabwe saying that it is looking at vaccinating 10 million people for the country to have herd immunity, so that those that actually do get vaccinated, when they do contract COVID-19, it doesn't become fatal. Mtunga.
Indeed, lingaba litshona njani emakhaya Zimbabwe omuhle, silethemba sidibana singabaphilileyo. Ngosuku lwanamhlanje ngolwesihlanu nje mhla ka-15 lamhlanje sikhangela umkhuhlane we-coronavirus oqhubeka uluhlupho hatshi eZimbabwe kuphela kodwa lasemhlabeni jikelele. Amanani aphume izolo akhomba ukubana kulabantu abangama-25 ababanjwe lumkhuhlane njalo kubhubhe abathathu. Phakathi kwabangu-25 laba ababili babo ngabavele kwele India. Kuthi kulabanye njalo abayisikhombisa abake baba ndawonye lababili laba abavele India asebetholakele labo bele coronavirus, okungangokuthi kunakanelwa ukuthi ababili laba bathelele abanye abayisikhombisa. Okwethusa abanengi ukuthi kwele India kulomkhakha we-coronavirus otshisayo, ubulala abantu abaningi kakhulu njalo usabalala ngendlela esabisayo. Ngokunjalo abanye sebesesabela ukuthi mhlawumbe ababili laba abavele kwele India bengaba sebeze lo mkhakha lo wakwele India obulala abantu abaningi. Ingcwethi kwezempilakahle-ke kazikatsho lutho ngokuthi abantu laba bengaba belalowo mkhakha kumbe ngeminye nje imikhakha levele ikhona elizweni, akukacaci khonokho. Sikhangele inani lasebebhubhile ngalomkhuhlane sebefike 1,682. Kuthi asebebanjwe belawo since last year sebeku 38,491. Abahlatshwe ijekiseni yakuqala yokuvikela lumkhuhlane izolo bangu 10,078. Kuthi abahlatshwe esibili bangu 11,577. Asebehlatshiwe eyakuqala bonke sebesedlula ingxenye yesigidi 559,875. Yilo udaba esingalo ke lolo lamhlanje, kodwa isiqokoqela isethu ludaba lukamahlulo omkhulu uChief Justice uLukmalaba. Yena osemangalelwe emthethwandaba kulandela uku-extendwa ukuqheliswa kwe-contract yakhe ngumongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa, ukuthi even though besefike iminyaka ye-retirement kumele akontinue aqhubeke esebenza eminye iminyaka emihlanu 5. Isinqumo esisanda kuphuma enkantolo udaba olukhwezwe ngamagqwetha awe-Young Lawyers of Zimbabwe ngesokuthi udaba lolu luzaqhubeka luhluzwa ngabahluleli be-High Court abathathu abathi uJustice Joe, uJustice Charewa, loJustice Mushore. Ugatsha lukahulumende olwe-Judicial Service Commission belucele izolo ukuthi hayi uJustice Joe ukhanya ule interest kulolu daba, u-conflicted, ngakho bebethe kumele aphume. Kodwa i-breaking news esanda kuzithola lapha zilethwa ngabe-Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights ngezithi hayi umthethwandaba ukwalile khonoko ukuthi uJustice Joe aphume kulolu daba. Ngezinye indlela uhulumende kumbe i-Judicial Service Commission idliwe, inqotshiwe kulolu daba, okungangokuthi soluzaqhubeka-ke luthethwa inkantolo ibisiyatsho-ke ukuthi ukuqheliswa kwe-contract kaMalaba kusemthethweni yini njengokwenza kukaMnangagwa kumbe akukho emthethweni njengokutsho kwamagqwetha Mafa.
semswechishanu kudai May 14 2021 tichange tiri kutarisa isu nyaya yedenda rechirwere cheCovid-19 tichitarisa zvakare zviri kuitika panyaya dzezvematongerwo enyika. Asi kuziva kwamuri kuita kutanga kwevhiki rino takaona mutungamiri wenyika vaEmmerson Mnangagwa vachiwanikwa ivo vachisaina bill riya ranga riri kunetsa reconstitutional bill number 2 rinovapa masimba ekuti vawedzere nguva yekuti chief justice varipo paregional vaLuke Malaba vawanikwe ivo vachienderera mberi nebasa ravo. VaMalaba vanga vakatarisirwa kuti vaende pamutyandikere sezvo vasvika ivo pamazuva ekuti vachienda pamutyandikere e70 years. Asi takaona vachipiwa zvakare makore anokwana iwo 5 kuti vaenderere mberi nebasa ravo. Izvo zviri kushorwa nevazhinji munyika uyezve sekutaura kwatanzwa mutungamiri achitaura kuti pane breaking news iripo pari zvino yezvaiitika nhasi. Saka ndo zvimwe zvatichange tiri kuzeya ipo pano pachirongwa chedu, tisingakanganwe kuti pari zvino denda iri rechirwere cheCovid-19 richiri rakapfunya chisero munyika. Bazi rezveutano rinozivisa iro kuti kubva nezuro 13 May 2021 nyika yeZimbabwe yakawanikwa iyo iine vanhu 38,491 vabatwa nedenda iri reCovid-19. Zvichiedzazve pamberi pane 36,286 vakabatwa nedenda iri reCovid-19 asi vakawanikwa ivo vachiri kunda. Tozotarisa avo vakawanikwa vachishaya kubvira March gore rapfuura vasvika ivo pa 1,582. Asi sekutaura zvakare kwatanga tiri kuita ipo pano kuti imwe nyaya yanga iri kutyisa ndeyekuti pane vamwe vanhu vaviri vakabva kuIndia vakawanikwa vachibatwa nedenda iri reCovid-19. Sekuziva kwatiri kuita kuIndia pari zvino kuine imwe strain iri kutyisa pasi rose, asi hazvisati zvanyatsoongororwa kuti strain iyi ine vanhu vakabva kuIndia ava ndeyeko here kuIndia kana kuti ndeye COVID-19 yatinogaronzwa mazuva ese. Tichange zvakare tiri kutarisa kuti chirongwa chevaccination program yemuZimbabwe chamira sei, tichiona kuti pari zvino bazi rezveutano riri kuzivisa kuti pane vanhu 559,000 vawanikwa ivo vachibayiwa nhomba yeCovid-19, zvinoreva kuti pane vanhu over 500,000 vabayiwa nhomba iyi. Asi nyika yeZimbabwe inofanira kubaya vanhu 10 million kuti vawanikwe ivo vaine inonzi iyo herd immunity, inoreva kuti inozokwanisa kuti kana munhu akawanikwa achizobatira denda iri reCovid-19 harizomuradzika pasi uyezve harizowanikwa richitora upenyu hwake. Saka regai tiende kuti tichizeya nevanyarikani vedu vari pano nyaya tichangobva kutambira iri kupisa yatanzwa panyaya yezviri kuitika mumatare Ntunga.
Indeed, Mava, abasanda kusixhuma singumsakazo weStudio 7 njalo sikuhlelo lwe-Livetalk. Let's go straight to our panel. We have tonight David Siampondo of the MDC Alliance. We have Mr. Dan Moyo of the MDCT, as well as Dr. Masimba Mavaza of ZANU-PF. Let me start with Mr. Moyo. I'm sure you just heard us giving an update, Mr. Moyo, that the High Court has rejected an application by the Judicial Service Commission, in other words, by the government, for Justice Joe to recuse himself from hearing the issue of the extension of Malaba's tenure. What do you make of that?
Well, this goes to the issue that people have been saying over and over, that our courts are captured. In this instance, there was a good reason why they were asking just Joe to recuse himself, and for that request to be denied shows that the concerns that were brought up are being disregarded, and that is a concern for for how the judiciary is being managed in Zimbabwe, because this is a serious issue at hand here that with regards to Amendment Bill number 2, which some in some quarters are saying was even done illegally and should have gone through a referendum versus the parliament deciding on passing that bill. So it's very disturbing that when people raise concerns, those concerns are rubbished, and people are not given a chance to express their opinions on an issue like this.
But in this instance, Mr. Moyo, someone would say, quite to the contrary, this might insinuate the independence of the judiciary, because in this case, is the Judicial Service Commission or the government that has lost.
Yeah, but sometimes some of these things are just cosmetic to create an impression that that is the case. We know that at the end of the day, the bottom line is the real issue behind the court challenge. And that real issue is the Amendment Bill number 2 that is passed and has been signed by the president, which is very unpopular with the people of Zimbabwe because it goes ultra vires to the constitution that they recently contributed to, the new constitution of Zimbabwe. We still have many laws that need to be aligned from that constitution that have not been aligned, and yet already it's being changed.
Thank you there, Mr. Moyo. And please do stay on the line as we bring in our second guest. And that's Mr. David Siampondo. What do you make of this, Mr. Siampondo? We know, of course, the matter has not been argued in full. This was just an application by the government for Justice Joe to recuse himself, saying he has an interest in this matter. What do you make of that judgment today?
Thank you very much, Tunga. And I would want to adopt one sentence by Chairman Moyo there, that this to me might appear to be a cosmetic, because the real crux of the matter is the actual case that is before the judges right now of illegal extension of the terms of the judges. So to me, firstly, it's an indictment on the part of the Judicial Service Commission for them to really come up with such a defective stance to go and demand for recusal of Justice Joe on the pretext that he once interviewed with them for a job. So you will see that because of that stance, to me, there is something really that the government is pushing towards. There are some special cases or some special purposes, judges, that they want to hear these cases so that they can easily have their way and railroad them to make a decision that is unpopular with the masses, just as these amendments of the constitutions are so unpopular with the people. So at the end, to me, yeah, it would appear as if they are not being controlled, but let's wait and see how this matter is going to conclude. But I am very, very pessimistic in the way issues to do with cases where the state is directly interested in the outcome of those court cases has been handled before. So yes, to me, the judgment today might seem as if it's a positive movement towards the independence of these judges, but with experience, with what I've noted before, this might be just as good as a cosmetic to me. It doesn't mean anything after or before I see like the fuller conclusion of the case.
Thank you there, Mr. Siampondo. Very pessimistic, and Mr. Moyo said he also wasn't convinced. Now let's bring in Dr. Masimba Mavaza of ZANU-PF. Sizwe ukuthi yena uthini timbonza ukuthi iwo vari kuzviona. Say, Dr. Mavaza, good evening and welcome, and let's dive in. We saw the High Court today rejecting an application by the Judicial Service Commission to have one of his judges recuse himself from hearing the issue of Chief Justice Luke Malaba. Your colleagues here, Dan Moyo of the MDCT and Mr. David Siampondo of the MDC Alliance are saying clearly that cannot point to the independence of the judiciary, as some might argue. What say you?
Thank you. The first thing is, I think this is a purely legal case at play here. And when the JSC made an application that Justice Joe is an interest and therefore is conflicted by sitting over through this case, this is nothing political. It is prosperous and quite confusing to hear my colleague in the MDCA, Mr. Siampondo, saying that it was an attempt to control the judiciary. No, it is a legal process where you apply for a judge to accuse himself if you think there's an interest. And furthermore, the fact that the case is even in court, having been applied by these Zimbabwean young lawyers, you look at the point that these young lawyers, number one, their application is it has no merit. Why would I say so? For the court, for the country or for the president to firstly sign in the amendment bill, he did not just sign it in. It went through the legal processes. So there was nothing unlawful in amending the constitution the way it was. It went through committees first. People discussed about this. If you remember, this started in 2018. It has been, the discussions went on until 2021. So the legislation is taken about 3 years to be put into law. So by putting it into law, there was no illegality in the whole matter, and therefore you cannot ask for the amendment bill to be struck off on the basis that it is illegal or it doesn't represent the people's mind. The point is, the voting, when it went through the vote in Parliament, one member of Parliament represents the whole of his constituents, and therefore the members of Parliament who voted for this amendment represented their constituencies, and we operate and survive in a democratic representative situation. So democracy, what it means is we do not have to please to have the yes vote from everybody. The majority would rule. So the majority of the parliamentarians representing the majority of their constituencies agreed and confirmed that the bill must be done. So there is nothing in law which was wrong by this bill. Number two, by then further extending the term of office for the Chief Justice, there is nothing wrong in that at all, because the president was following the law. The president was doing what is legal. So he did not simply extend him because he loves him. He did that because he has the right to do so. And therefore, none of it can point to any cloud of illegality. And let's not politicize it.
Thank you there, Dr. Mavaza. And please do stay on the line. Liyamuzwa lapho uyakhuluma ubaba Mabaza owezanu PF uthi hayi akulalutho olubi olwenziwa ngumongameli Mnangagwa ngokuqhelisa isikhathi sokusebenza kukaMahluli omkhulu uMalaba. Ngakho uthi lanxa nje inkantolo namhla ithe hayi ubaba uJoe uChief Justice Joe kumele aqhubeke engomunye walabo abahluza lolu daba, uthi hayi phambili kabasoze baphumelele abenhlanganiso ye-Young Lawyers Association of Zimbabwe laba abathi uMalaba kumele asuswe ngoba okwenziwe ngubaba uMnangagwa akukho emthethweni. And Mav is very interesting because we have a similar scenario, somewhat similar scenario playing out in Kenya, where the High Court yesterday also rejected attempts by the government, by President Uhuru Kenyatta, to to amend the constitution. Exactly the same case that we are seeing playing out in Zimbabwe.
I don't know. Kenya and Zimbabwe seem to have like a very symbiotic relationship when it comes to politics. So it will be interesting to watch what's going to come out of that. But we've watched in previous. They seem to have some kind of relationship where they literally carbon copy what happens in Kenya will happen in Zimbabwe or the other way around.
And our constitution, remember, it's mainly predicated on the laws of Kenya and South Africa. We copied a lot of stuff from Kenya and South Africa when we wrote our own constitution in 2018.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see what happens because in this case, Zimbabwe, went ahead and did what they did, and then we're seeing Kenya doing the same thing. But I've had a lot of different views coming from people about this addition of 5 more years to Chief Justice Luke Malaba. So it will be interesting to see what our panel here will say about what they think is really happening. Because I had to chuckle when I heard Dr. Mabaza saying it's not that the president loves Mr. Malaba, but he's just doing it according to his law, or he feels that's the best candidate. So it's interesting view there.
And also he says there's no legality. But again, we should point out that, of course, constitutional amendment number 2 is predicated on number 1, which is also being challenged in court. There's a lawyer, Mr. Stole, who has filed papers in the courts challenging number 1. And also today, a lawyer at NIBT did the same. He went to the courts challenging number 1. So if it so happens that number 1 is declared unconstitutional, I struggle to find how number 2 would stand.
Maybe it's a question we need to toss back to our panel and just maybe pick their brains on what they think. But just to stay on inyaya iyo yatiri kuona iri kuitika mumatare pari zvino tomboenda kuna vasiyampondo veMDC Alliance kuti imi munoona sei zviri kuitika izvi sebato rinopikisa reMDC Alliance tisati taenda kuna vaDan Moyo, nekuti vamwe vari kuti bato reMDCT harifanire kunge richitombotaura zvakawanda nekuti vamwe vavo vakawanikwa vachivhota kuti bhiri iri number 2 riwanikwe richipasiswa. Saka da kuzonzwawo kubva kwavari, but tombotanga neMDC Alliance.
Vasiyampondo.
Thank you very much. As the MDC Alliance, I think we were quite unequivocally clear in terms of our stance to these amendments. So we have a constitution that we adopted in 2013. And we know it's not the best of the document that we would wish to have, but at least it more like represented a step forward. And having it amended the way that it is being handled right now, it's really something that as a party, we have been very, very much against. So let me also hasten to correct or respond to what Vamabaza said with regards to the process being handled by our parliamentarians and all that stuff. right? So in as much as parliamentarians are the political representatives of the people, the 2013 process, the constitutional making process, it wasn't done by parliamentarians. It was done by the rest of Zimbabweans. So we cannot have 350 members making alterations, amputating the constitution willy-nilly. And moreover, if you look at the clauses that they are amending, it's a clause that has or that carries a specific language, which more like explains the stages that have to be fulfilled in order to amend such sections. There was need to have consultations with the people. They were supposed to have a referendum on those clauses, especially that have anything to do with extending the terms of office of given persons who are mentioned within that constitution. So you see that in terms of it being illegal, already they have crossed the legality line. So for Ramabaz, I think maybe we would need really to understand what's his understanding when we are looking at a constitutionally given provision that you have to have a referendum for you to amend this this section of the Constitution. And then our main point of departure or difference with our colleagues is the Constitution is supposed to be the sacred document, and we have to hold it in the highest honor we can as a nation. And we cannot be in the habit of just amending the Constitution. So we are looking forward to the alignment of the laws or the proposed constitutional changes that was agreed upon by the rest of our Zimbabweans in 2013. So we view Zimbabweans as the biggest stakeholders in any constitutional process or activity that can be done. So without the people, the constitution we have no one to uphold. So when we want to change anything to do with the constitution, let's have that courtesy to approach these people to consult. Even if you are given such powers, at least just show the courtesy of consulting your own people, because you are leading the people. You are not leading yourself. So having these political processes happening and having someone also saying we should not politicize it, I think we are missing the mark there. This is a political process, and we have to comment it from a political stand view or a political perspective, because this is politics happening right now. So that's our feeling. The constitution should not be amended, but the constitution should be aligned with the suggestions and provisions that were agreed upon in 2013 by the rest of Zimbabweans. And if there is anything that is not going well with the proposal, then let's go back again to the people, tell them we have tried that, this is not working. So we were suggesting we look from this angle, and then there is that continued social contract with our people in as far as governing them. I think that's our position as the MDC Alliance.
Thank you there, Mr. Siampondo. Liyamuzwa uthi hayi bona kabavumelani lakho lakancane ukuguqulwa kwesisekelo sombuso lokhu, ngoba vele besingaqala ukusebenza ngokugcweleyo from silotshwa ngo-2013. Uthi kuyabamangalisa ukuthi hayi sesidlithiziwe saguquguqulwa. Ubaba uMalaba waphiwa le 5 more years ngomthetho obemele aye kumpentsheni ngomgqibelo, lapho wafikisa khona iminyaka engamashumi ayisikhombisa, 70 years. Kodwa abe-MDCT obaba uMoyo Silavo lapha labe-ZANU-PF babambene baguqula isisekelo sombuso. Sapha-ke umongameli Mnangagwa amandla okuqhelisa ama-terms kaMalaba nge-5 more years. Baba Moyo, size kuwe lapha. Yebo liyakusola lana okwenzakalayo lokhu, kodwa abanye bazathi phela lani lavuma la yini elabambana leZANU-PF la ivuma lenguquko.
Yeah, once again, Tunga, the problem ekhona njengoba uMr Siyampondo echilo is issue ye-consultation. Even ama-MP awe-MDCT avotela utshintsho lolu lwe-constitution abazange ba-consult, not even one of them uzokutshela ukuthi uhamba wayabuza abantu abarepresentayo ukuthi yikho abakufunayo na. So all this, as far as we are concerned, is very improper, because i-constitution, being the sacrosanct document that it is, eyabhalwa ngabantu after uyakhumbula even ukuhlangana kwami nawe the first time sahlangana ngalo udaba lona lolu lokuconsulta nge-constitution, sibeka ama-views ethu ukuthi sifuna kube lani kuleyo constitution. I-process lana yayenzakala yathatha isikhathi until sagcina sesilayo i-process ye-COPAC leya, sagcina sesilayo i-constitution lapho esavumelana khona both abantu be-MDC labezana savumelana ukuthi this is the progressive constitution that we should have as a country. It's a well-written document. So okumangazayo ukuthi manje i-government isi-decide ukuthi sifuna uku-amenda certain sections of that constitution. Now ayisaboni kule need yokuthi consult abantu, because ama-clauses la afakwa ngabantu. Abantu yibo abathi thina sifuna ojaji maye esefika umnyaka we-70 aretire, so that kube lani le change ku-judiciary, so that new blood can come in, so that you don't have abantu who have the same mentality continuing. This thing is very political. So Dr. Mabaza, I don't agree with him when he's saying that we shouldn't politicize this. This is very political. It comes from the question is, what is the intent? Has even Itim Nangakwa himself, has he even explained to the nation why there is a need for such an amendment? Now he leaves it up to us to speculate. We know the role Malaba played in 2018 after the elections. He's the one who was presiding over the fracas that occurred with accusations of vote rigging, which benefited ED. So now that it brings him back, knowing very well that 2023 is around the corner, what does that mean to the people? It simply means that it's very political. He wants him to be there again to make sure that he's going to bring up the V11s and whatever else, if ever another challenge comes up. So our main point of contention is that we don't want a judiciary that's captured. There are three branches of power in our government. It's the executive, it's the judiciary, and it's the legislature. So we cannot have now a judiciary that's determined by the executive. That's destroying democracy. And that's exactly why the people came up with the kind of constitution that we have. We cannot allow, now that it is the one who's in power, to now destroy democracy and want to control the judiciary, which is supposed to have equal powers as his president and the executive. So we have an issue with that. Yes, we have a problem with our own MPs who were misguided clearly by other clauses that were thrown into the amendment bill. For instance, the women clause and the youth clause. What was needed really was leadership to consult and agree that those clauses cannot supersede the importance of the other two things that were in that bill, namely this issue of the judges and extending their terms as well. Well, I don't care much about the running mate clause because at the end of the day, you still choose the person you want to run with. But this one here infringes on another branch of government, and people should have been educated enough to know that a vote for yes on a bill such as this is damaging our democracy.
Thank you there Baba Moyo uqhubeke usecingweni lapho. Ngiyamuzwa ke ubaba Ten Moyo lapha we-MDCT uthi hayi yebo amanye ama-MPs abo ayivotela linto but hayi kabavumelani lakho ukuthi uMalaba aphiwe 5 more years. Uthi kwakumele uhulumende akhulumisane labantu kube le consultation. Mav.
Ndakanyatsoteerera ipapo Ntunga panga pachitaura vaMoyo nokuti ndo mubvunzo wandachida kunzwa kwavari asi vabva vapindura kuti vari kuti ivo vamwe vevadare vavo veMDCT pavakavhota vachivhotera kuti paitwe nhingikiri pabill number 2 vamwe vanga vasingazive kuti vanga vasina ruzivo rwakakwana kuti zvaizobuda zvakadai kuti tinozoona vaMalaba vachinzi ivo vawanikwewo vachiwedzerwa zvakare makore 5 nekuti vari kutaura kuti vamwe vakangoenda kunovhota vasina kunyatsotaura nevamwe vakuru vemubato iri kuti vanyatsonzwisa kuti zviri kufamba sei. Asi regai ndimboenda kuna vaMavaza ndichibvunza ini kuti tambenge tiri kutaurawo nevamwe vanhuwo zvavo vanga vari kuuya papurogiramu yandamboita yeLivetalk ngatikurukurei paFacebook vachiti ivo mukazokwanisa kuwana mukana imbobvunzaiwo kuti vaMalaba havasi kupiwa chinzvimbo ichi semubhadharo here webasa ravakabata pasarudzo dzabva kupera idzi apo takaona vachimira vachitiwo ngakunzwe maV11 nezvimwe zvakadaro. Kuda kunzwa kubva kuna vaMavaza.
vaMavaza.
Thank you Mavi. Munoziva chokwadi dambudziko riripo nderekuti vanhu vazhinji vavhiringwa mafungiro avo nekuda kweruzha ruri kuitwa nevanhu veMDCA neT varoda kuedza kuti nyaya yemutemo igoita senyaya yematongerwo enyika. Nemamwe mazwi chinangwa nemhaka yeye vanhu vari kupopota vachijambira mudenga nekudzika pasi pamusoro pavaMalaba nekuti vari kufunga kuti vaMalaba vakatonga vakarerekera kurutivi rweZANU-PF muna 2018 but chokwadi ndechekuti munhu wese akateerera MDC yakakumbirwa kuti iunze umboo hwemafomu acho ainzi maV11 forms anoratidza kuti vhoti haina kuverengwa zvakanaka. Vachamisa vakabuda paTV vakabata dutu remapepa vachiti ndo pane umboo apa asi tapinda mukoti dutu riye harina kuonekwa panga pasina bepa rakabuda rairatidza kuti zvakamira sei. Saka vaMalaba vari kungoroverwa musaga sekiti nevanhu vane maoko ajara kungorova. Zvinonakidza kana kushamisa kunzwa vaMoyo vaDen Moyo vachitiwo maMP avo anga asinganzwisisi zvavakavhotera zvoreva kuti vamiririri vevanhu veMDC kana vatingati maMP MDC ataurwa nenhengo yavo pano kuti havazivi havana pfungwa dzekupinda muparliament itori mistake kuvasiya varimo because pavakatovhota apa havazivi zvavakavhotera. Zvoreva kuti MDC iri kutungamirwa nemapofu vari kungovhota zvavasingazivi. Asi chokwadi ndechekuti tida kuti tinzwisise zvakare pamberi kuti chekutanga constitution inogona kuvandudzwa kuti ichinjwe zvimwe zvinenge zviripo pachiiswa zvimwe inogona kugadziriswa. Pane pekuti munozocheuka shure moona kuti pamakabvumirana paconstitution mutemo wamakaisa uyu uri kukusungaimbira dzakondo. Munogara pasi nevamiririri venyika yese kuti mukurikure even makaita maconsultations kuma-districts nekumaprovince munhu wese haatauri. Kune vashoma vanototaura ndo mamiriro egutsa ruzhinji. Kukangotaura vazhinji vashoma havagutswi. Nzwisai kuti gutsa ruzhinji inoreva kugutswa kweruzhinji kwete kwevashoma. Vashoma vanoramba vakadaro nekuti havana kunge vane ruzhinji. In other words, nechirungu democracy means the majority. So it means the minority then will not benefit where the majority are benefiting as far as creating the laws are concerned. Titarise zvakare tione kuti mukanyatsotarisa mushe va
Siampondo.
Siampondo havana kunzwisisa mamiriro emutemo uyu. Constitution 2013 yakasarudzwa nevanhu because yanga iri constitution yese. Mutemo unorambidza hurumende kushandura constitution yese musina kudzokera kuvanhu. Saka apa zvakaitika mutemo hurumende haina kushandura constitution yese, hurumende hapana chayakaita, asi parliament ndiyo yakagara ikakurukura ikapinda muvanhu. Kubva 2018 nyaya iyi ichingori pamiromo ikataurwa kusvika 2019, 2020, 2021 payakazopera. Saka zvoratidza kuti constitution ikai haisi static. The constitution is not static, it is dynamic, it is adjusted, amended and changed kuti ifambirane nenguva inenge iripo, ichifambiranawo nezvido zvevanhu vanenge varipo. Saka vanhu vari kutadza kunzwisisa kuti constitution hazvireve kuti zvamanyora nhasi ndozvichakusungai nekusingapere. Imi ndimi varidzi constitution, you control it. While the constitution guides you, you control it. Zvakafanana nekuti vangomo mutyairi wemotikari akatenga mota yake, motikari yake inofamba iri perfect, imota inomuendesa kubasa, asi basa rake iye nderekudhiraivha motikari achinzvenga zvipini zvinenge zviri mumugwagwa kuti akwanise kuenda kwaari kuenda. So in other words, the constitution directs us to the future because it is for the people, by the people. Saka pamajority takuenda panonzi pa2/3 majority paya, pakavhotwa nemajority yakapfuura 2/3, ndati ngatichotere chinhu 1, MP mumwe chete wega wega akamirira vanhu vekuconstituency kwake. Saka paanenge avhota constituency yake yatovhota naye. Ndo marwadzo edemocracy atingafadzane tese. Saka kupopota nekuchema nekusimudza makano nemapfumo kuri kuitwa nevanhu veMDC kunongoratidza kuti pfungwa shoma dzinoremera Athens nebasa. MDC yaremerwa nepfungwa dzayo nebasa nekuti havasi kufunga, ende ndataudzwa navamoyo vabvumirana neni ende ndobvumirana navo kuti maMPMDC yacho akaenda kunovhota asina chaari kuziva nekuti havazivi. Saka zvinoratidza kuti vakavhota vasina chavari kuziva ndo vashoma vaya vakavhotera kuti amendment number 2 isaitwe, asi vanhu veMDC vaiziva zvavari kuita ndo vaya vakavhota vachiwirirana neZANU-PF pakuti amendment iitwe. So tikaramba takatarisa in short, ngati munzwisise kuti the referendum yanga iri kuchemerwa navasiampondo aingoitwa kana tiri kuchinja masection ebumbiro remutemo wenyika. Referendum inoitwa kana tiri kuchinja bumbiro racho rese, ndozvoti tigare pasi tikokurukura. Nawo pekupedzesera, handibvumirane nemaonero kana kuti necomment yaitwa namave yekuti dzimweni dzenguva zvingangodaro zvinoratidza kuti MDC yazoshungurudzika yanga isingazivi kuti mukuru wedzimhosva wevatongi Chief Justice achazowedzerwa makore ake. Chief Justice haasi player in politics. Chief Justice ndiye chief wekuyananisana iya inonzi justice, ndiye mukuru weyananiso anogara mumatare edzimhosva nematare emitemo. Chief Justice kana achingata basa irori haasi kuitira hurumende, ari kuitira Zimbabwe. Saka kuti iye apiwa 5 years hausi mubhadharo webasa raakaita 2018, because paakaita basa rake 2018 aipiwa pay yake every month. Basa rake raakaita ranga risiri reZANU-PF, asi ranga riri basa ranga raunzwa against the parliament, against the vote kwende parliament, against the vote yaitwa nevanhu. Akavhota akarerekera kuti zvaitwa nevanhu hapana chakanganisika, because MDC haina kukwanisa kuunza chinoratidza kukanganiswa. Saka in taking the case on the round, we can see kuti constitution yedu haigadzirwe iri iya yatingati full proof. Ine mimwe mitemo, mutemo unoshanduka nenguva. Pane mitemo inozoonekwa mozoichandura. Hamungazomirira kuti vanhu vatange vaungana vese. Saka mukatarisa apa vangomo munoona kuti this amendment yakabvira 2017 vamunangagwa vasati vava president, ikamboshelfiwa ikasvika parutivi.
And that is the reason why it's being challenged, because amendment kana term parliament ikapfuura isina kuperwa, that falls away. But
exactly.
I'll come back to that.
Parliament yekutanga yakaunza shanduko iyi term yayo yakapera 2018. Parliament itsva kubudikidza nemwe munhengo yeparamendi vanonzi vatogarepi, vakabva vasimudzira vakatanga patsva kuisa emotion. Motion iyi ikazodzoserwa zvakare gore rino iri motion itsva navamushakabvu vamupofu vakashaya, but vanga vari member parliament vakasimudzira mutemo uya ukatangwa zvakare kukurukurwa. MDC ikatibatsira kandi ikabatsirana nema-MP eZANU-PF, and vaita izvozvo mutemo kana kuti proposal yakareiswa navamupofu vanga vari MP wekuzvishavani, ikasekondwa navatogarepi, ikazosekondwa nevakawanda vazhinji veMDC payakasvika pakuti ichivhoterwa vakavhota. Saka vanga vasingavhotere mutemo wakatangwa 2017, vaivhotera mutemo wakatangwa 2018. Saka hakuna
rega ndimboenda kune these other two gentlemen. Ndichadzoka kwamuri takuvhara chirongwa because we are running out of time. Mavu sesisalelwe imzuzu elishumi lapha ukuthi sigqibe uhlelo, ngakho abasanda kusixhuma singumsakazo we-Studio 7. Those who've just joined in, this is Live Talk on Studio 7. And tonight we are talking about the contentious issue of Ubaba Malaba oseqheliselwe i-contract ngumongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa. We saw today the High Court rejecting an application by the government or the Judicial Service Commission to have one of the judges hearing this matter, Justice Shaw, to recuse himself. The Judicial Service Commission says Justice Shaw is jealous. He has a personal interest issue, but the court said not so fast. So iyaqhubeka ke inkantolo ihlafuna udaba lolu olulethwe ngabe Young Lawyers Association of Zimbabwe ukuthi basho ukuthi ukuqheliswa kwecontract kaMalaba kusemthethweni yini kumbe akukho emthethweni. Mafta sarane 8 minutes chat.
Yes, and Tunga, I just want to go back to Mr. Mabaza, not to ask him a question, but just to clarify that view that I gave is not my personal view, but the view of the listeners who were calling into a show. Asitienderera mberi tombopawo mukana kuna I think vasiya mpondo kuti vawanikwewo vachitaurawo pfungwa dzavo pane zvanga zviri kutaurwa naDr. Mabaza munyaya iyi.
Nemukana iwoyo kuti tipindurewo zvataurwa navaMabaza. Right, so ndakateerera vachiedza kutsanangura zvavanga vachida kuedza kutsanangura, but
adjusta kamera yenyu mbichana munyatsopinda munyatsoonekwa.
All right, thank you. So ndruti ndanga ndiri kuedza kuti ndinzwisise kuti pane zvavari kutaura zvese vanga vari kuti kudii, but hapana chandawana chinobatika chine musoro chataurwa navaMabaza kunze kwekushoropodza nekutuka mhuri kana kuti vana kana zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe. Ndichangokumbira vanhu ngiri zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe kuti vavaregererewo, nekuti ndikatarisa Zimbabwe kazhinji ine maChristians akawanda, and Bible rinotidzidzisa kuti minduro nyoro inodzora kutsamwa. but pano paninozotiwo pindura benzi muupenzi waro kuti mangwana risafunge kuti rakangwara. So vamabazi ngavacherechedze uye vazive kuti hapana patinozosungwa mbira dzakondo senyika nekuti vamalava havana kuextenderwa term of office yavo. Tine vanhu vane capacity, tine vanhu vanokwanisa kutora chinzvimbo china vamalava izvezvi nhasi. Kune zvinhu zvinokwanisa kuitika mukati meupenyu hwavamalava hwekuti vanogona kunzi sekukumbirwa kwavakaitwa nevana veZimbabwe kuti kana munhu wasvika 70 years hauchakwanisi kunge uchigara uchitora chinzvimbo chauinacho ichocho, kana kuti mangwana nekuda kwaMwari vanogona kumuka wakaita tsaona, ende hatisi kunamatira izvozvo. Saka kunotofara kutozouya mumwe munhu achavatsiva. Saka vamalava is not a super judge. Vamalava is not an extraordinary person watingati without him our legal system is going to crumble. Ngavazvinzwisise izvozvo. Isusu tinoda nyika yekuti vana veZimbabwe vanowana mukana wokutungamira nekutungamirirwa nevanhu vakasiyana siyana. Saka hatina chakakosha sofa chatati taona chiri kubva kuna vamalava chisingakwaniswe kuitwa nechimwe chezvarwa cheZimbabwe chinenge chakadzidzira zvine chekuita nemutemo. So zvavari kutaura zvokuti hatisi kuda kuti tizosungwa mbira dzakondo endi kuti tinogona kuzopinda mune mamwe matambudziko. Hatisati tamboedza kuita alignment yemutemo yakaproposwa. Mukatarisa mitemo yese izvezvi iripo right now haisati yatombotraiwa, haisati yatomboedzwa. Saka tinoziva sei kuti yakashata isusu tisati tamboita sei, tisati tamborarama mairi. So ichi kana kuti kuita kwezanu kwavanenge vachida kuti vambunyikidze vatore masimba ese vamaconcentrate mukati memaoko emutungamiri wenyika, because zvinovabhenefita, pane pazvinovabhenefita. Saka kana muchida kuona kuti chinhu chakashata sei, tanga wateerera vatsigiri vezanu kuti vari kuti kudii. Ukanzwa vachitsigira chinhu ichocho chibva waziva kuti ichi chinhu chakashata, hachinei nekubudirira kwenyika yeZimbabwe, because by nature there are people who are very very selfish. And also from nekutaura kwavangu vachiita kuti mutemo weconstitution kana kuti constitution inonzi ndo yega isingafanirwa kuti ichinjwe. Kana yakuda kuchinjwa vanhu nhengeri mukuru wenyika anofara kuenda kuvanhu kunonobvunza, kwete. I would also want to correct that. So if you look at that particular section, it tells you that the 2/3 majority is not sufficient to effect that change, to effect that amputation on it. So what you have to do is you have to go back, have a referendum in as far as if you are proposing to change anything that has to do with a term limit that is set within the constitution. It's not enough just to have a 2/3 majority. So you should go back and read. So you should not more like be a proponent of that old age adage. You put an old age is no protection against foolishness. You should you have to go back, read, and make sure that you comment from a more informed position.
Thank you. I will give Dr. Mavaza time to respond as we wrap up. But Siyakubaba umoyo mnumzana moyo sivala nje uhlelo siyazi kuleminye imithetho esolwa ngabantu abaningi ebuyayo kulomthetho we-Patriot Bill ozadinga ukuvotelwa lawo eParliament. Njenge-MDCT njengoba lavotela linto eselikhala ngayo, kukhona elikufundileyo yini nxa kuyiwa phambili?
Yeah, engakutsho ukuthi i-leadership esilayo right now MDCT, as you know, thina abanye we are still fighting about i-leadership leyo ukuthi yangena njani lapho, yangena okusemthethweni na noma nayo nje illegitimate. So we silele yonkinga esilayo esibhekane layo khona manje ukuthi njenge-MDCT thina abanye sivumelani le leadership ekhona ukuthi yakhethwa ngemfanelo. So we have this situation where we are in disagreement with our leadership. We don't believe that it's legitimate. We don't believe that our constitution was adhered to. We don't believe that the extraordinary Congress rose to the occasion, as espoused by the ruling that came out of the Supreme Court. So with issues like that, we are a house divided, and that then what you saw happen at the lower house and in the Senate is exactly that. We saw a house divided because we saw certain members voting for the amendments and other members voting against the amendment. Had we consulted and went in as a united house, we would have all voted the same. So clearly, it shows lack of leadership within the party, and to me, it has to do with the very fact that the leadership is being contested, the very fact that a lot of people, even within that leadership, do not believe that those people in there were elected properly. So until such time that we clean our house, we're gonna have these situations. And also, you must understand, ZANU PF has a way of also bribing people. We I'm not going to say specifically if anyone was bribed, but the fact that we have these divisions, there's a very possibility that some people were bribed or promised other things to vote for this amendment. The gist of the matter and the most important part is that this is a constitution of the people by the people, and we cannot allow power now to be centered on ED, because now ED is going to run the presidency and also run the judiciary, because now they've given him, through this amendment, the right to appoint judges without them going through the rigorous interviewing process. So now we have ED, we've concentrated power in ED. Next thing now, obviously, ZANU PF MPs, the legislature itself is going to be compromised. So instead of us proceeding, moving forward, where we have three branches of power, we are now down to two, and the other one is questionable too. We might as well be a dictatorship. We might as well be an authoritarian government, because if we allow all those things to happen, then there is no way we can go out there and say Zimbabwe is a democracy. That is a fallacy.
Thank you there, Mr. Moyo. And I know viewers are wondering why is Tunga laughing so much. It's my first time to interview somebody who tags his own party so much the way Mr. Moyo is doing. But that's a fair point, Mr. Moyo. Ibandla lenu lidabukene phakathi. We really understand that. Siqhubeke uhlelo ngoba yeah.
Suspending his own president in South Africa.
Fair point. I'll take that, Mr. Moyo. And let's wrap up. Vamavaza, you have just 1 minute to wrap up.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to reiterate that, Mr. Siampondo had failed, could not understand the truth, because he is always away from the truth. His party, the MDC Alliance, has never been built around the truth. It is a foundation of lies, corruption, and shaky things. That's why they always think anything done is corrupt, it's shaky, and everything. So Siampondo, I will forgive him as well, as he wished to forgive me for nothing. But I'll forgive him for his ignorance and for dragging the dead horse, which is his party. That doesn't help us to our issue. But you can tell that Siampondo, in his lack of wisdom, he is attacking Malaba personally, not because of the law, because they lost elections, they lost the court application, and because of that, they are angry with every judge who had taken part. But the judges would rule on what has been given to them by the MDC lawyers and ZANU PF lawyers. And
Thank you.
the law wins at the end of the day. And finally, Mr. Moyo, Dan Moyo, thank you so much for accepting the truth all along, that MDC is totally distracted and disunited. That's why it's called MDC, Movement for a Disunited Party. So in other words, the problem we have here is Parliament set and agreed for these laws to go by. These
Thank
people were
you.
supposed to challenge
Thank
it in
you.
Parliament, not
Thank
in court.
Thank you, Nguwandiwe Pera Vamavaza. I know Mr. Moyo and Mr. Asiampoto, they've loved to have the last word, but Iskati says he hambile. And I would like to say thank you so very much to our guests, David Siampondo of the MDC Alliance, Mr. Denmoyo of the MDCT, as well as Dr. Masimba Mavaza of ZANU PF, MAF.
You have a very good weekend. I'm Marvelous Mplanganya in Washington.
And I'm Tungameli Nkomo. Good night, Zimbabwe.